working from home or going back to the offices with Rafael Araújo, Chief Operation Officer at Hana Brophy in California. Good evening, Rafael. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Hi, Cavagna, you bet. So nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
What time is it in your city now?
It is 11 a.m. Can you
Oh,
believe that?
yeah, good morning. So we have
Good
4
morning.
hours difference. Yeah,
There you go.
that's great. Rafael, please, in this very interesting theme, working from home or going back to the offices, it seems the pandemic is going away. Oh, thanks God. And the questions of returning to the offices are still keep working from home or a hybrid system. What managers and employees are thinking about this matter?
Yeah, I like a lot, Cavagna, that you bring these two perspectives, and I think that those are two, and maybe we have more. It's a topic that we can talk about it on the surface, but it's a very complex item, right? So straightforwardly to your point, um, it seems that the hybrid approach is the better option, and we may talk on this later on, but you have many different aspects related to that, right? It relates to safety. It relates to the company's ability to attract and retain talent. And the list goes on. So you have many different facets of it. And but it seems that, and it's not the first time we talk about this topic, right? So the pandemic is here
Right.
for over a year now, and since the beginning, we were talking about how fluid the situation is and how important that is to be able to adapt, adjust, and pivot when needed, because what is good today may not be good tomorrow. So we need to be flexible.
And but people, what are the main questions, thoughts, and let's see, reasons, questions that they have? What
Mhm.
the logics that they have, both sides?
So okay, that's a good point. Let's try to deep dive on this, and it's amazing because we tend to put in topics like that, we tend to put employees and employers in different sides
Yeah,
as if they were competing against that. But if you deep dive and look at it in a more thoughtful perspective, you may see that the concerns are very similar, and there are more things in common than things that really put this two categories of people apart. So, for instance, when you talk about safety, so that is a common concern, right? So while the employee is more concerned about uh, spreading the virus inside of their houses, the employers also don't want their workforce affected by this virus, because it's not only a group of people doing something for them. We are talking about human beings that you develop relationships with and you also care for them, right? So another very common topic is about profitability, for instance. So companies want to learn, pivot, and be more profitable at the end of this. And you can also extrapolate that for the employee side as well. So if you think of the possibility of remote work as a way that allow these employees to not need to live in the big cities, or to go to a place that houses are more affordable because they are working from home. So it doesn't matter if they are in the big city or uh, 300 kilometers away. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. So they can have a better life, economically speaking. They can go to places that put less pressure to their personal budgets and have more afford a better living. So when you look at those things, you see that they are very similar and touch both sides. So another thing is the efficiency. While the employers want to reduce their real estate footprint,
yeah.
the employees will take a lot of advantages by not commuting every day. Sometimes spending an hour and a half each way, and a lot of this time could be used to produce, or of course not all positions are allow for remote work, but for those positions that allow, they could be.
Logistics and cleaning, for
it-
instance.
It's impossible, right? You got to be there. But for those that are possible, that time, the hour and a half that they spend each way could be used for producing, for taking care of themselves, eventually go to a routine of physical exercise that sometimes is hard to establish, and be more productive. So at the end of the day, those concerns are very similar to both sides. They of course, the perspectives are different. The level of impact, it is different, but there is more uniting these people than put them apart.
The old vision of time spending, internal availability, I mean, from people. But there are two types of jobs in this case. So people that make projects and by tasks, so you can perform by tasks, delivering some, and all the others that are continuously demanded in the office. So I suppose that this difference can drive some kind of decision.
Oh, for sure. So I think the nature of people who work by project, it is already a certain level of individual consultancy, or I think they own their times, and they have a stronger say in whatever relates to the relationship with the work they do and the people receiving their services or products or whatever they have to put out, which is different from what people who work 9 to 7 or 9 to 6 every day, and etc. Right? So those relationships are different. But the beauty of it is that I think many industries have been conservative in avoiding this type of remote work as much as they could. But then the pandemic, like many of them, right? So we can stay here for hours naming companies who never allowed or went to throughout this, in the middle of the pandemic, said now everything will be remote, and now they are somehow stepping back because you also have some other factors stepping in, such as mental health. So how does that come to place? Can you? One thing is doing something for a certain period of time. The other thing is doing this same thing for a long period of time in a sustainable way, and keeping your mental health. And I think that this mental health thing will be a massive factor when we put people together. But if you think about those things, it's these companies that have a huge resistance and work in a conservative way, always people from the office, they had no choice, and then they were pretty much exposed to a situation that they would either close their doors or allow for remote work. Yeah, and then it worked for a while. It's been working overall. It's very rare to hear that it did not work at all. Usually the feedbacks are very positive. The point is, how is that in the long term, and how companies will maintain the culture of the company without those get-togethers in the water fountain or the coffee machine that happen on the day-to-day.
Yeah. And for certain positions,
talking about coffee.
Oh, thank you. That's a good mug, huh? Let me ask you, for certain positions, there is shortage of positions to complete.
Yes, that's true. And I was reading last week, Cavagna, that here in the US, when you combine the economy picking up back again and the government allowance for unemployment, several people are rethinking whether or not they should come back to the market, or eventually you do not have the workforce ready to be back. And that's another topic that is critical, because if you do not allow for some flexibility and adapt based on the need of the person or the possibilities that you have available, it may cost too much for the companies because if you are not able to attract people, then you need to pay more to do so, and that becomes a kind of a snowball effect, right? That affects profitability immediately, and so forth and so on.
So probably salary wage may become bigger than today.
We are seeing that here in the US. So in Brazil, the unemployment rates are very high, right? And that's so unfortunate. We hope that it's back on track shortly. But what we learn, and mostly your audience in the energy industry is very high. This industry has ups and downs, right? We saw many cycles of great moments and not so great moments. But the point is that if the employer, the business side, wait until the last minute, wait until the moment they need to start pivoting and not going that while it's a possibility or it would be a good idea, that might be even more expensive to them.
Yeah, a point is the decisions are not driven only by the reasonable logic, but the mindset of the leaders, the controllers, or more democratic. And how do you see this leadership in these decisions?
I think in this situation that we are right now, a more humane focused leadership and a more strategic HR approach is critical to navigate through this strange waters, I would say. If you, for instance, well, it's very normal to hear about the generational preferences, right? And in a situation like that we are talking about, I think it would be very common a bias that pretty much understands that people from generations X would be more comfortable working from the office, and people from generation Y and Z would be better off in a more flexible situation. Listen, I think the likelihood for that to be right is very high.
Yeah.
But the problem is that this is not a moment to go through bias. We all have our bias. It's all right. It's not a big deal. As soon as we understand that these bias cannot determine people's destinies. So, and that's when we need HR and leadership to step in. So rather than pretty much talking about the big concepts, it's important to understand who is that person who is in front of you. For instance, we are here in a moment to discuss this policies on to work from home and when to allow for more flexibility, when not to do so, and of course the type of the work, the role the person play in the workplace, it's critical, right? Because as you said, logistics, or cleaning, receptionists. So there's not something you can do from home.
Security,
right? So you cannot do those things from home. However, if we go to the generational bias and just assume that's right, we may be with a huge mistake. It's not surprising to hear, for instance, that Z or Y generation person is living with their parents and do not have a space where they can sit down and devote the time to concentrate and do good add value tasks. On the other hand, eventually you have X generators working from home better because they have smaller kids that need their attention and that they can pivot and do. So the point here is that this general concepts, they are important, they are relevant, but leaders, HRs, they should not be stopped by the initial bias and try to dig it a little bit deeper, because that human being faces some surrounding conditions that may not allow them to behave as expected based on the general concept.
For a certain period of time, I suppose that employees are being empowered by the situation. No,
Right.
what do you see? But not for a long time. It's a short
Right.
time, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a moment of uncertainty, right? So we didn't really know how to navigate that, and that's another thing that many companies are making mistakes. And if we think a little bit about our situation, it seems that communication is never too much in that point. So McKinsey and Company, they put out a report talking about the level of anxiety that people experience when they do not have clear communication or a clear vision on what expect after this pandemic. And some people may say, but we don't really know how that will be, so how can we communicate, right? So, but the point is, communicating that is part of a fluid situation that may evolve and that can change. It's also communicating. Actually, those people understand that you are thinking of them, that your willingness to adapt, your willingness to do whatever is necessary to take care of them, or not. If some companies are not that willing to adapt, and maybe while the unemployment levels are high, they may navigate normally. But then when it drops a little bit, people tend to choose these to work for companies in spaces where they can have more flexibility and adapt their lives to that. But I think it's pretty much like the real estate market, Cavaya. When the vacancy is too high, it's the tenant market, and then the tenant put the cards on the table and say, I want that, I want that, I want that. But when the vacancy is low, then it's the landlord market, and that's a natural movement. And I think the beauty of it, mostly from the employer side, is understanding that whatever these people do, it's known by the firm's culture, the company's culture, and that communicates to other generations. So sometimes they may lose access to critical talent because something that they did when it was their turn, and they were somehow excessive. So it's important for the leaderships to understand that even though it's their moment now, there will be that moment will pass too. So right. Keep that in mind.
So the phrase of the day is for dress code: no more ties, no more high-heeled shoes.
Yeah, so it seems that the beauty of Zoom and these virtual meeting rooms, that they do not require that, right? Yeah, so that makes life easier. And sometimes when you have that, it's only in the upper part of the body. Sometimes people are doing that and dressing shorts. It's not my case today, but dressing shorts down below.
The last point, please, Rafael. The hybrid system, you believe that the hybrid system will be the most common?
I think so, and for various reasons. I think the level of uncertainty that we have ahead, now and ahead, it requires some flexibility. And if you go to one extreme or the other, that will not allow you to be flexible and deal with what you have. And that is real for the real estate you use. You have alternatives to handle the space you have. So that's real for people. And when you think about this, you were really talking about the most relevant assets that companies have to keep pushing, right? So and if you are negligent on that point, you may lose people. Another hot topic, just very quickly, is about the vaccinations. In some places, so here in the US, now we are in a moment that whoever wants to be vaccinated, they can be vaccinated. So Pharmacies, health insurance companies are calling people to say, hey, come to get vaccinated. Come here, regardless of your age. It was very bad in the beginning, but then it pivoted. But the problem is that can employers require vaccination for people to get back into the offices?
Interesting. Must have.
And the must have. Can they say that? And then it's amazing how some stuff are coming up, like religion. Some people are refusing to get vaccinated because of their religions. And how is that in terms of individual freedoms that people have? It's a very hot topic that you gotta be tuned and understand how to deal with that.
Which percent do you believe that will not be vaccinated? 20%, 30%?
I would guess something about 20 and 30%.
Wow, it's a big number.
Yes. So you know what, Cavalli? Other topics are coming to mind now. Not sure how we are in terms of time, but another big issue is the compliance. So working from home can be amazing, but you have some people that in the US, they are the non-exempt. In Brazil, they are the ones who are paid. And actually, bottom line, what they do is they have the right to receive payments for overtime worked.
That's right.
How to handle that and control people who are working from home? That was an issue then. And when I was in the energy industry, people in the rigs working overtime. So how we could control that? But now the environment that we do not control is pretty much everyone's house. So how can we do that? And the problem is that, and that's something similar in the US and in Brazil, that says work overtime must be paid regardless if it has been authorized or not. So if you don't know as an employer, how can you pay? And if you don't, you can have a problem in the justice later on because you haven't done so. So I believe that the legislators will have to work something, and I'm positive they will, but until it's not a thing, how to handle? That's a big question mark. Another thing is the security itself. So in the energy industry, we know that those occupational accidents, they affect the company's stock price, right? Depending on the level and etc. But when you are putting people at home, eventually without the right setup to do their work, you may be, usually these occupational accidents are more common in the manufacturing ground floors. But now everyone may have an ergonomic issue that here in the US is the workers' compensation claims, and in Brazil are those occupational accidents that affect the business overall. So policies, will the companies allow for an amount for people to have the right equipment? Will they loan equipment? How about training? So you have
weighted chairs, Wi-Fi quality,
exactly.
kitchen knives and problems with accidents and so
exactly. So we can easily talk on the surface, but when we start digging into the topic, you have many different points that come to mind that are not simple to navigate through.
Yeah, that's right.
Not at all.
Not at all. So the point, the conclusion, I suppose, is that the society in each country needs to learn every time, every day with this experience. So nothing is definitive in this point.
Fluid. The situation is completely fluid, and what is right, okay, today may not be the case tomorrow. And the companies who have offices, branches in different states might have different legislations. In different countries, for sure, you will have different legislations. So you gotta check what's going on in the regulatory authorities and try to navigate through it. It's a moment that
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I would like to invite you in 3 months. We have another coffee with this one to compare what we were talking today, and 3 months later, what can we talk?
Let's
Was
do
a
it.
pleasure.
Likewise, it's always good. It's always good to see you, and I appreciate the time. So, and we could be talking here for hours.
Yeah, that's right.
The topic is it's so complex, even though it doesn't look like at first sight.
Yeah. Rafael Araújo, COO at Hannah Brophy, California. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Likewise, my friend.